In this week's DCS SITREP, we talk about the MiG-29A once again, which received the first of its post-released patches. The DCS core got a couple of different fixes following last week's big patch to correct some VR problems. As 2025 rumbles here to a close, will we get the C-130J, the LA7, and most importantly, the dynamic campaign? If you're looking to join thousands of others who are enjoying the PC VR journey in flight simulation or racing simulation, then look no further than the Pimax Crystal Lite, which is their entry-level VR headset with some of the best visuals in the business. Right now, the Pimax team is offering a limited time offer trade-in deal on your current headset so that you too can enjoy the clarity of glass-aspheric lenses providing ultra-sharp 2880 by 2880 resolution per eye. Not only that, but the team advised me recently that they have now expanded the trade-in option for the Crystal Super. This is the flagship headset supporting retina levels of clarity, and by taking advantage of this limited option trade-in deal, you'll get the Pimax DMAS headphones valued at $99 and prescription lenses powered by Hans VR up to $159.90. Now, the DMAS gift will officially end on September 14. However, all users who join the event during the campaign are guaranteed to get it. Don't forget to include Prickly Hedgehog 72 when submitting the upgrade form. This ensures you'll receive an extra gift. Now, with this trade-in deal and limited free shipping to the US, EU, UK, Australia, and Canada, it's never been easier to dive into the amazing experience that VR delivers thanks to Pimax. Check out the link in the description below for more information so that you can start your own immersive experience in VR with Pimax. Welcome back to the DCS SITREP. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog, once again talking about DCS World News. And also recovering here from a little bit of illness. Actually, it's been a shocking week. Been incredibly sick and quite a lot of time off work, which hasn't been good. So hopefully I'm on the road to mends right now, although Mrs. Prickly Hedgehog has also inherited it, and she has not been happy with me. So let's talk about DCS and the midweek patch we got, which starts with a noted issue, which I found last week too, and I passed this on to the team. It had already been noted by several other community members, and that was a VR crash with regards to secondary shadow map modules. In particular, the MiG-29, I noticed, wouldn't load certain missions with those secondary shadows on, and I apologized last week too for the quality of the video footage that I had recorded, which was an absolute nightmare trying to rectify on Saturday of last week. I went through all the settings, uninstalling, reinstalling, actually reinstalled the entire game, and finally sort of was able to fix some of the issues that I had, and with discussions with others as well, trying to work through those VR problems. But that secondary shadows issue came up during the troubleshooting, and it was good to get that repaired. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like it was too much of a difficult issue for the team to repair. Now, they also decreased the time of saving and loading of large missions, which is nice. And then they also fixed a crash on the deactivation of those new RSBN or the PRMG car. So that has been corrected. They also made some adjustments here to the AI aircraft, which is kind of a nice one. So the takeoff procedure correction has been introduced so that the next AI aircraft waiting to take off with permission to enter the runway is not based on the fact that the previous aircraft has actually taken off, but it's now based on the distance from the start point. So hopefully that'll correct some of the quirks that are associated with AI aircraft from time to time. Now, there were a couple of other minor fixes here as well, which I won't go into, and I'll refer you to that changelog, which actually is fairly decent considering we had that big patch. Now, the biggest receiver of updates, as mentioned, was the MiG-29A, which has been a great introduction, I must say. And they have now added things like the 3D model damage. It's a work in progress. It is a first iteration. Some of you mentioned this previously as being a little bit disappointing that it wasn't introduced in the first round, but it is now in, and it only took, effectively about a week for that to be introduced. They've added additional English HUD and HDD versions. They are fictional just for convenience. They've provided lower resolution textures in the cockpit option. They've added controls indicator overlay with right control plus enter if you need it. There's an auto stop procedure, HUD repeater export. They've added single missions for Georgia 2008. And we talked about this one already, and that is fixing the crash on the RSBN or the PRMG car. The animations for the trigger and the missile trigger are to be swapped. That's been fixed, and then the lock indication is not resetting after a lock break, but the logic is working correctly and the radar stops locking. They fixed that. The FCR, they fixed the single target track extrapolation mode. Lock is more stable now when the target passes through the notch. They've adjusted the radar sensitivity in close combat mode. Lock range and its probability became more accurate. Enabled sensitivity attenuation for the CAJ mode. That's a work in progress apparently. They fixed the air intake louvers, animation corrections there, chaff flare sequence corrections. When repairing after a wheels up landing, the repair completes, but the landing gear is not lowered, so after the repair you are dropped back onto your belly, negating the repair, so you're stuck in a loop there. That's been corrected. Good news. IFF issues for clients has been repaired with regards to connecting the mission hosted on a dedicated server. The single player or self-hosted servers don't have this issue. Now, when using the FCR, missile launch is not blocked in the absence of a launch authorization signal on the HUD or the HDD. The lock can be removed by setting the switch, prepare manual auto to the manual position. They're continuing to work on this functionality. After all the work and testing is completed, we will write about how that works, apparently. So now root points, arrows for the MiG-29 DTC don't work correctly in some cases. That's been corrected. The GUI error when trying to import MiG-29 DTC in some cases has been fixed. Part of the drag chute stays attached behind the aircraft under the ground after dropping the chute, so that animation has been corrected. And then with broken or retracted gear, the gear bay becomes transparent. Part of the 3D pilot model is still shown when hidden. Synchronized external mirror positions with the internals. Yay. One of the circuit breakers combinations produced electric power jittering. Padlock keys not working. Imperial unit cockpit versions IAS indicator animations issue with the Mach number. Auto start fails at battery level stage. That's kind of irritating. And that's been fixed though. The manual has been updated too, remember, so the names of the bars on the instruments have been corrected. Information about launching missiles in pairs has been added, and minor adjustments have been made based on comments received. So thank you for those people that are providing constructive feedback and information on, idiosyncrasies that creep in any large project like this. There are little errors and things, and it's to be expected in any early access module. Lastly here, we see things like the gear bays are closed after repair despite the gear being lowered, and no INS alignment after repair. So post-release points, as is described here, they saw discussion about the SPO-15RWR operations with onboard radar, and they have provided an elaborated explanation in the forum section. They also saw questions about the mobile RSBN and the PRMG stations usage. Just a reminder, they have a guide for that. WAG's video is out, of course, on navigation and landing and using the RSBN PRMG here. I'll try to remember to put a link to that in the description below. The autopilot oscillation problem is a priority for the flight model team currently. They're looking at tackling that next, which is good. Some players reported difficulties with radar use, mainly due to incorrect mode selection. This update includes several radar fixes, and documentation will be improved to clarify the proper usage, which will be helpful. And if you were paying attention last week, you'd already know that WAGS has produced a ground attack guide for the MiG-29A, and I'll try and remember to put a video link for that as well. Now, known issues. Currently, the helmet co-op mode usage sequence has a bug if the radar state was off before the mode was activated. The workaround to correctly lock a target using the radar as the supporting sensor in a cooperative mode is that the radar must be on, so Illume dummy off switch must be in the dummy position before activating the IR-ST or IRST mode, so IR-CC helmet option. For this mode, you'll need to also switch the IRS modes using the CW, CCW switch movement and not use the keys 3, 4, or 5, or 6. Activating the IRS modes using the keys does not ensure target lock by the radar as an additional channel in cooperative mode. So they plan to correct this also in the next update. So if that's frustrating you, then good news is that will be fixed. Now, I have to say, with illness this week and everything else going on in my life, I just have not had much of a time to really fire off missiles and use the jet in anger, but I do plan to spend more time doing that as time allows. I'm close to completing a home project which has been stalled because of me getting sick and stuff like that too, so I've been very, very busy. Pimax has reached out again and provided me with some additional material to test and use and review. So I'm hoping to do that this week a little bit as well. So stay tuned for a new video on the Pimax Super, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. Let's turn now to some updates to the Viper. They have fixed the hot start left cheek pylon switch, incorrect on the hot start. They fixed the crosshair and the point track box hidden during the XR processing. The slight zoom change while XR processing, that's been fixed. ATP AA TGP stops tracking the target after an emergency jettison. The TNDL transmit power doesn't transfer correctly to the plane. And they've fixed the incorrect spool down sound on startup. So cool. Couple of little fixes here for the Hornet as well. They've fixed a crash in the radar, and the range while search mode cannot designate raw bricks. And also they've fixed that you cannot burn through jammers. It consistently fails and then gives you a blinking lock. Obviously there is a point where the power of the radar can overcome jamming emissions. Again, this is all dependent on the aircraft and the environment, but that's you get close enough that you can push through that jamming. So yeah, nice little updates. Now, one aircraft that did get a lot of updates this, I guess, midweek patch was the Hind, and this included, and I won't go through all of these, but quite a few fixes for the radio, the sight. They've fixed the things like the manual firing distance adjustment knob and the crosshair brightness adjustment knob. So some, again, quality of life stuff. And that was for the pilot, but they've also got some updates for the pilot operator as well. Similarly, again, sort of quality of life, visual improvements there as well. And a couple of the campaigns as well. So Reflected Simulations is Zone 5 campaign. They've bulletproofed the startup sequence, also for the Speed and Angels campaign, and also for the F4E Red Flag 81-2 by Reflected. The safety trigger added to compensate for the new AI takeoff spacing, which is cool. Now, as part of the newsletter this week, we got great news about the yearly autumn sale. So we're talking up to 50% off. So don't miss out on bargains. As I always say, it's a good time to stretch your dollar a little bit further, pick up a module, pick up a map, pick up a campaign, and sort of bundle your dollars there to, again, stretch the value of your money. And there is, I won't go through all of these, but there is a large list of aircraft with 50% off right now. A couple of highlights, though, include things like the Apache, the Black Shark, the Hind, the Mi-8, the Gazelle, and the Huey. Those are all 50% off helicopters. So if you've been kicking around getting one of those and just haven't because of price or what have you, now's the time to, it's just a great bargain on those aircraft, the Apache particularly, but the Black Shark 3, and we're talking here, and also the Hind, a great aircraft as well. World War II Assets Pack is also 50% off, and 3 terrains here, Nevada, Persian Gulf, and the channel maps, and then huge number of campaigns, which I won't go through. So again, like I said before, it's a great time to stretch your dollar, get a campaign, pick up an aircraft that goes with that campaign. Then you need the map maybe, and you might have an opportunity to save quite a lot of money. It's 40% off the Viper, 40% off the Hornet, also the Super Carrier, 30% off modules like the Tomcat, the F-86, the JF-17 Thunder, and the MiG-15, 30% off Kola, Normandy, and Syria, and 25% off right now the F-4E Phantom, which is a great bargain and an amazing aircraft. People have done a fantastic job on that and introduced, as I've said previously, some really cool features that previously we haven't seen in DCS World. Unfortunately, there are some things that aren't on sale. The Kiowa is not on sale. The Chinook is not on sale. The F5E Remastered is not on sale, the Corsair is not on sale, the Mirage is not on sale, Flaming Cliffs 2024 is not on sale, and the F5E Flaming Cliffs version is not on sale either. The maps that aren't on sale, of course, Afghanistan, these are fairly new, remember, Southwest Afghanistan, Cold War Germany, Iraq North, Sinai, and South Atlantic. Sadly, those are not on sale just yet, so you'll have to wait for another time. Well, that wraps up pretty much this week's DCS SITREP. As mentioned in the intro, we still have a couple of things in the wings, possibly slated for 2025. The year is really grinding on. We have roughly 3 months left. So what is it that we can expect to see? The C-130J has been showcased quite a bit recently. It appears to be largely ready for an early access release. And then the LA-7 is another aircraft in the World War II stable that has been showcased fairly heavily over the last 12 months or so, and was also looking to be a 2025 release. Here we are, as I said, almost at the end of the year with not much time left. This is always a challenge, I think, for Eagle Dynamics, is managing the release of modules in a way that maximizes the potential of their sales for the third-party developers, which is, how they recoup their investment into producing these aircraft. They are extremely complex, these full-fidelity aircraft, and some of them have niche appeal. Certainly helicopters versus some fixed-wing, certainly transport aircraft like the C-130J versus fixed-wing fighter jets. So there's a broad enough scope now for a lot of players to pick and choose as to what they want to focus their attention on, especially in a study-level sim. That leads to some players being a little bit frustrated with the potential lack of things to do, and I think that's a lack of recognition on the depth and complexity that you can get into this game. One of the panaceas for that is the quick action generator, which I think I need to spend a little bit more time playing with and showcasing a little bit more as to how you can use that as an effective means for creating replayability in the game. Of course, a lot of players are looking for the big thing, and that is the dynamic campaign. And I think that will be a panacea for a lot of problems with regards to replayability and single-player focus. Whether or not it lives up to the expectation, of course, we're still waiting to see, in fairness. It is a massive, ambitious project, and ED has admitted it's taken them a lot longer than what they expected. And I think, in fairness too, there needed to be more streamlining of the DCS core, which has been a major improvement over the last 12 to 24 months with regards to VRAM optimization and multi-core, multi-threading optimization, which I still think is potentially subject to further enhancements or changes. Whether or not the potential for Vulkan API to, again, render in, no pun intended, better performance or eke out better performance in the DCS core engine is still up for grabs yet. And these things take a long time to introduce, depending on the resources that you can throw at it and whether or not you're going to overcome any hurdles, so on and so forth. We are using DirectX 11, which is still a little bit limiting in some of the way it can etch out more performance from hardware interface. So yeah, there's limitations there. Whether or not, again, this dynamic campaign is introduced this year is an unknown. And while they have showcased aspects of it, we haven't, as far as I can tell, seen any examples of a working model of it in the game just yet. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. As always, we're going to have to wait and see what pops up on the horizon here in the DCS environment and whether or not our demands for a dynamic campaign are satiated. It's a big undertaking, and ED has admitted that. So yeah, 2025 is rapidly coming to a close. Thanks for tuning in again. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP, and we'll see how this MiG-29 continues to grow in popularity and improvements to the model. It's been a great introduction and a welcome addition to the Red Force stable, so long may that continue. Cheers, we'll see you next time.